Imagine a plan so big it could literally remake global trade. A brand new Silk Road, forged from steel rails and sea lanes connecting entire continents. But this grand vision, which was born in a moment of peace, is now staring down a monumental challenge, a region on fire.
So what are we talking about here? It's called the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC. But look, don't just think of it as another trade route. No, this is a seriously ambitious plan to physically wire together three of the world's most dynamic economic zones. The scale of it is, well, it's hard to overstate.
And that, right there, brings us to the big question, the reason we're doing this explainer. You see, this whole corridor was launched on this incredible wave of optimism. But that wave, it just crashed against a solid wall of conflict. So can a project that was designed for a peaceful future actually survive the turbulent reality of today?
Okay, let's dive in. To really get why a project like IMEC is even on the table, we first have to look at the cracks that are starting to show in our global supply chains. There's a crisis unfolding right now in the Red Sea that has shown everyone just how fragile things really are.
Yeah, the security of our most critical sea lanes, we just can't take it for granted anymore. What's been happening with the Houthi disruptions in the Red Sea has forced massive container ships to take the long, and expensive detour all the way around Africa. And what's the result? Weeks of extra travel time, millions in extra fuel costs, and a pretty powerful reminder that we desperately need some reliable alternatives.
And that's exactly where IMEC comes into the picture. It was designed to be a direct answer to these kinds of vulnerabilities. A massive project to build a more resilient global economy. So what is it exactly?
Okay, to put it simply, IMEC is a huge multinational plan to forge a completely new path for trade. But this isn't just about moving shipping containers from point A to point B. The goal is much deeper. It's about creating real economic integration with a stable, predictable flow of goods, energy, and of course, data.
So picture this journey. It's really a two-part trip. First, goods travel by sea from India to ports in the UAE. From there, they get loaded onto a brand new high-speed rail network that cuts directly across the Arabian Peninsula. We're talking right through Saudi Arabia and Jordan, all the way to Israel's Haifa port, before the final sea leg to Europe.
But you know, the vision for IMEC is about so much more than just cargo. The plan also includes laying a clean hydrogen pipeline and a massive electricity cable, creating a whole new energy corridor. And alongside that, a high-speed undersea digital cable to boost data connectivity. So yeah, it's a corridor for goods for sure, but it's also a corridor for the energy and the information of the future.
You have to remember, this project was born in a moment of incredible optimism. It was sparked by the Abraham Accords, those historic agreements that normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations. For a moment there, it really seemed like economic cooperation could finally pave the way for a lasting peace. But that atmosphere, well, it just evaporated, almost overnight.
I mean, just look at this timeline, it's pretty stark. In September 2023, you have world leaders in Delhi launching IMEC with this feeling that a new era was dawning. And then, just weeks later, the October 7th attacks and the conflict that followed completely upended the region. The very foundation of cooperation that IMEC was built on, it just suddenly crumbled, putting the whole thing in doubt.
So, with its main rail link now supposed to cut right through a conflict zone, you're probably thinking, okay, this project is dead in the water, right? Well, not so fast. There are some very powerful strategic reasons why IMEC is still very much on the agenda.
And the answer, surprisingly, has to do with a completely different challenge, one that's quietly taking shape thousands of miles away, in the freezing waters of the Arctic.
You see, as the planet warms, climate change is actually opening up new shipping lanes right through the Arctic. Now that's a potential game changer for Russia and China. But for Mediterranean powers like Italy and France, it's a huge strategic threat. They see IMEC as a vital countermove, a powerful southern corridor that ensures their ports don't just become irrelevant on this new global map.
And then, of course, you just have to follow the money. We're talking about trade between the EU and India worth over $136 billion. These are two economic giants, and they have a massive, shared interest in a secure supply chain, one that doesn't rely on a single vulnerable sea lane. And believe me, that mutual interest is a very powerful force keeping this project alive.
So the billion-dollar question is, how can this project possibly survive? Given the new realities on the ground, the original blueprint is just not viable anymore. But that doesn't mean the vision is lost, it just means it has to adapt.
And the key word here
is flexibility. See, IMEC's strength is that it's not just one country's project. It's a multi-member initiative, so we can adapt. Planners are already looking at alternate routes, maybe using different ports in Saudi Arabia or even Egypt. The core idea is to build a resilient network, not just a single line, to create a system that has no single point of failure.
There's this really powerful idea that the project's two main anchors, India and Europe, have to act as bookends. It captures the path forward perfectly. They have this shared responsibility to provide the stability and the resources needed to hold the whole thing together and to drive prosperity all along the corridor.
And that leaves us with this final, critical question. IMEC started as a project of peace through prosperity. Now it's a project that has to somehow survive deep conflict. So its ultimate test is this: can the powerful logic of shared economic interest, can it really be strong enough to build bridges across some of the world's deepest, most difficult political divides?